In a world filled with challenges and opportunities, it's not just about having big dreams, it's about having the right approach to turn those dreams into reality. Whether you're navigating the competitive landscape of business or seeking personal growth, it's all about the approach.
Welcome to another episode of The Approach. My name is Dr. Davis McAllister, and we call this show The Approach because when I worked in military intelligence, our success and failure depended on taking the right approach. On this show, we discuss aspects of leadership and problem solving and the approaches that have made our guests successful. My guest today is Justin R. Spears. He is a U.S. Navy veteran. I'm always excited about having veterans on. And he's a visionary business strategist and entrepreneur who has seamlessly bridged the worlds of military precision and cutting edge technology to drive transformational growth. So during his military service, Justin was instrumental in modernizing operations, streamlining processes, and implementing advanced technologies that improved efficiency and reduced costs in high stakes environments, which is extremely important, especially where our Navy is concerned. Justin has become a catalyst in the business arena with a passion for harnessing innovative strategies to scale companies. He is the founder of MXI Consulting, managing partner for M3D Technologies, and is the chairman of the Florida Association of Veteran-Owned Businesses. So his deep expertise in AI-driven business strategy, advanced technology development and integration, and data-driven business administration has empowered organizations across various industries to unlock competitive advantages and achieve sustainable growth. Let's welcome to the stage Justin R. Spears. Welcome, Justin.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you, brother.
I really appreciate you taking the time to come on and visit with us and share your expertise. You've got a really interesting and very unique background, especially coming out of the Navy. My father-in-law was in the Navy, my son's in the Navy, and they're always a lot more technology driven. I was in the Army. We don't need a whole lot of technology to do what we need to do. Read your bio, but why don't you share a little bit more? Who is Justin R. Spears? Where are you from? And share with us what your journey has been.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you shared a lot. Appreciate that. It's a long rap sheet, I say. Grew up working hay fields and working ranches and things like that. Went into construction field, and when the recession hit, it was a game changer for me and my family. Found us unemployed, losing everything, losing houses, cars, jobs, everything, and saw your pride pretty quick and asked father-in-law, hey, can I stay in a room there for me and my wife and 2 kids while I try and figure out what's next in life? And we decided to finally join the family business at 25, which was going in the military. Loved construction. It was great. And I was working as a GC pretty much right out of high school. And so I got blessed going into the military and waited almost 18 months on delayed entry to go in. I had a really great contract lined up and got to go in the intel field and track terrorists using satellites and some wild stuff. And then I go to ship out and they say, nope, that's full. 18 months of waiting. All right, you know what? Let's prove out this. What are we doing next? When do I leave? What's next? And I got a wife and 2 kids. That's more important right now. They said, oh, you're going to be a hospital corpsman. I was like, no idea what that is, but there's medical jobs everywhere. I was very hell-bent on never not having a backup plan again and not solely relying on myself. And it was, that was a pivotal point in my life of how do I make sure I always know someone, I always have connections, I have a tribe, and I've always got backup plans. There's always roads you navigate, and going in the military was that option. Went in at almost 26. My son was only 2 months old, or 3 months old at that point, and my daughter was almost 3. And went to boot camp, graduated and everything. I got graduated at top of my class at hospital corps school, so I got to select my specialty, which ended up being aerospace medicine. And so they sent me to Rough Life in Pensacola, Florida, and which was great to serve on the beach there. And then I ended up getting stationed because I graduated top of my class again at the Navy's Aerospace Medical Institute. And every order except for Pensacola was a Marine wing, and it was deploying right away. I just spent 16 months away from my wife and kids. And so I remember when the chief said, hey, where are you going? I was like, nowhere. I really like the beach. And it was a huge blessing. It created a lot of opportunities. I learned medical really fast. I did all my clinicals there in surgical suites, and I got to scrub in on a lot of surgeries and became a resident expert in aerospace medicine, loved it, really enjoyed that. And then got some opportunities afforded to me because I was always looking at how to better things. It was status quo, how things have always been done, never really works for me. I'm very systematic, but I always like, well, this is how you've done it, and that means there's always got to be a way. It's an evolutionary mindset. And so I approached that in the military, and it actually opened up an opportunity for me to create a couple new departments at my command, do ERP rollouts, do complete overhauls of entire departments. We ended up building out a medical logistics department, a quality control department for all aviation medicine across the DoD. Just had a blast, got to do some great stuff. Got recognized by the Navy Surgeon General for the changes that I made, the operational changes, the technology that I brought in. And so it opened up a lot of great doors. While I was doing this, I ended up completing both my associates and bachelor's, and every professional certification I could get the Navy to fund, I did. And then doing things really well and getting recognized. I went E1 to E5 in 2.5 years. Got a couple medals while I was on shore duty, really got blessed there. And then 2013, things really changed again. Ended up, somebody decided to pull out in front of me when I was riding my motorcycle, flying solo on the road, no one around. I was just commuting to work, and the next thing I know, I'm 3 lanes over on my head, upside down, and completely derailed my military career. Ended up spending from 2013 to 2020 in rehabilitation for a greater part of 8 years. I got medically retired out of the military, wearing everything from full-length leg braces. I was in walkers, canes. I had a mobility service dog for quite a while, multiple surgeries, spine surgeries, just trying to figure out, okay, what are we doing next? So I ended up getting out, and then through that, I continued to go to school. I ended up doing 2 master's degrees after I got out, one in intellectual leadership, and then did my MBA in entrepreneurship and innovation. While I was teaching as an adjunct professor, I took a job at a university, built out their entire veteran services department there. While I was teaching, started consulting, built another business on the side from an opportunity that arose. And then once I could walk again on my own in January of 2020, it was very quickly apparent that I was ready to get back to Florida from California. So once everything shut down in COVID, we moved cross country. My last job that I worked before I went out on my own full time, I did a big simulation expansion for a tech company out of the DMV area, the DC area, down here to Orlando. It's a great opportunity. And so Orlando, I love Orlando, very involved in the community here, got very involved in some great veteran nonprofits here, definitely home. And now rehab went well, things are doing good, really enjoying helping people with their businesses, with my consulting firm, really loving life down here. It's come very full circle.
What is the distinguishing deal with aerospace as an aerospace corpsman versus just a regular line corpsman? What were some of the differences there?
Yeah, so in aerospace medicine, you really have to study the effects of aviation. So altitude, barometric pressures, things like that, and the effects of supplements on aviators during flight. A lot of training involved as well, a lot of physiology and kinesiology involved, and an amazing amount of admin time doing flight physicals too. We love that. No, I'm being very sarcastic.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was anything that went up, we took care of and had a really good time. But it also kept me out of your traditional hospitals too. So my specialty was operational medicine.
Oh, that's interesting because my daughter is actually just graduated with her surgical tech certification. And that I apologize that for whatever reason our connection keeps coming in and out a little bit, but yeah, being able to work your way up so quickly through the ranks and getting put in charge of projects. And how did you navigate being able to move up through the ranks so quickly and then working your way into a position where you were in charge in a supervisory type position?
Yeah, so that was voluntold. Joining at almost 26, I was a couple months from turning 26 and being married for going on 7 years at that point. My wife and I got married 5 days after high school and started having kids just a few months later. They saw what I used to say, a walking sucker. I didn't have a choice. They said, you're older, you've got kids and you're married, you must be wiser. So you run these sailors. So even in boot camp, they put me in charge of everybody. Every school I went to, I was automatically in charge. When I got to my first command, as an E3, they're saying, "Oh, we need you to run this crew." I was like, "No, those are E5s. I'm not going to run them." And they're like, "Yeah, but they're like 19, 20 years old. It doesn't matter. That's not how this works." And so for me, a lot of it was determination. It very much was. In the Navy, we can promote off of test scores. And so it was, I figured out the ranking structure. I figured out the point systems. If I go to school, go to college, I get points. If I get the top eval, I get points. If I do all these things, I get points. So I made sure to do everything under the sun. So I got my top evals. I always had the early promote evals for my whole career. I went to college right away. So I finished all my onboarding quals within 6 months instead of the year, so I could start going to college. So I went into my first exam, just maxing out points, picked up E4 my first exam, and then my second E5 exam a year later, I picked that up as well. And so that was, I looked at what's my options for being able to promote here. I was meritoriously promoted when I was in boot camp. So that put me ahead by a little bit. And then I studied, went to school, did everything you could ever imagine, anything I could find to take on and make a change and save the military money and improve. And that was the way to get the good evals. And so I did. I exposed myself to a lot. I committed myself to things I had never done. When I committed myself to learning medical logistics, which isn't something that we do because we didn't have a medical logistics department. I reached out to Ivy League professors online and saying, "Hey, I volunteered myself to do this. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm a U.S. Navy veteran. I would love your help." It was the "your country needs you" call. And so I had some great professors at some great universities offer to help teach me things that the military didn't have traditional funding for. So I just went after everything. But I always went after it with a tribe. I always found those people. It's 2 or 3 other petty officers in the Navy. Let's do this. Find some civilians to help out. Find resources in the community. It was always going after things together.
Yeah. So this happened when I was in the Army too. Some people would get put in charge. They were defaulted by age. They got put in charge just because they were older and, of course, had some more maturity. Most people don't realize that a lot of your mid-management structure are in their mid to late 20s. Now I'm in my 50s. And so you look back on it and think back then I was 17, 18 years old. I'm looking at these guys and they've been in 10 years already and they're just in their early to late 20s. And just thinking about that concept now is wow, that's a lot of responsibility for people that age. And I work with a lot of people that are going through their doctorate programs and in their mid-20s. And I can honestly say that I've met some that I'm like, yeah, I couldn't imagine you being in charge of.
Absolutely.
But it does grow you up really quick. How much do you feel like your time before going in the military prepared you for being able to be a leader and all those things in the military?
It's interesting because going into it, I felt like I wasn't prepared at all. I had an entrepreneurial mindset. I started landscaping companies. I started contracting to sell hay and work hay fields. I always did stuff like that. But going into the military, I was terrified of what I was getting my family into. And for me, it was like going into it was irrelevant because I had 3 mouths to feed and we were in their session. So it was it was self-sacrifice. There was guaranteed paycheck and medical insurance. Sign me up. I just got to a point I didn't care what my job was. I was fortunate that it was whole tech or medical, and I knew what a whole tech was on a ship, and medical was my better choice. But then looking back after I got out, it did set me up because one, I was very open. So going in after losing so much, I barely graduated high school. Everything was all about work, trading hours for cash, labor force. And when I got into the military, it was, no, that didn't work. That was my mindset. This didn't work. I've got to learn a new way, something that was very different than the way I was raised, than my wife was raised, and the communities I was raised in. I needed a new mindset. And so looking back, I feel it actually really prepared me because when you lose that much, you realize, okay, my way is not working.
Yeah.
And I see hundreds of thousands of people that are doing well in this, the biggest gang in the world. Let's join that and learn a few things.
You started getting put in leadership positions right away. What was your experience with working with your leadership while you were in?
I was very blessed with. and which is fine. I had a very amazing career in light of him. But I was very blessed in my career. It was hard. It was very hard, especially people realize, oh, you come in and you're more mature. You're competing with 18-year-olds.
Yeah.
And a military career is very competition based. And people don't realize it's not like a lot of your corporate civil service where it's time and rate. It's very heavily competitive. And so when you join, you're immediately behind everybody by years. So I joined 7, almost 8 years behind my peers.
Yeah.
And so it was humbling when I get to my first command, and I'm 26, almost 27 when I show up to my first command. And this E4, he had just gotten back from Iraq. He was like, I think like 19. And he's 8 years younger than me. And he goes, oh, hey, nice to meet you. And he hands me a green scrub. And he's like, go scrub those floors. Roger that. I got you. What was really eye-opening was a year and a half later when I made E5. He was at my pinning ceremony. And he didn't realize I had a green scrubber in my back pocket. So when he came down the line of the command, in front of everybody, I handed him a green scrubber and said, those floors aren't going to clean themselves. And so that wisdom and that maturity is there. I was very fortunate that I had some very good leadership that understood that. And they understood that balance that needed to be there. But they also understood my willingness to take on a lot. I took on everything that I could because I did want to promote in my career. I also wanted to expose myself to I wanted to learn everything that I possibly could so I could figure out what worked for me. So it's like I volunteered for the Navy Ball Committee 1 year, which was crazy amounts of work. On top of I volunteered, I became a barometric tech as well. So I worked hyperbaric chambers with the dive community. So I'm up, I'm down, I'm training and going to schools. I take all these things to really expose myself, but I had the support of my division officer. My command master chief was probably my biggest champion to this day. Yeah. It actually got to a point where my LPO, my chief, they weren't around as much. When I became the clinic supervisor as an E5, just 3.5 years into my career, they were off doing other things because I was able to show them that I had built that trust. Yeah. And once they established that was there and they validated, they were scarce. Now my crew loved that because now I'm very much the mentality. I'm not a good salary employee. I'm a good peace worker. When the job's done, get out of here. Yeah. That was always my mentality. And it's like, hey, but that's when the job's done. So sometimes we had 14-hour days and sometimes we had 2. But we're going to make sure the job's done and we're ready for the next day. So there was a lot of appreciation from my juniors, but the results were there for my seniors as well.
I was very fortunate in the fact that my first squad leader was very much that same mentality, and I adopted that as I moved up through the ranks. And we called it training the standard, not the time. What were because of the age differences, were there some frustrations that you had to deal with and work through for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Constantly, it's like, why are you all acting so stupid? Yeah. It was a completely different paradigm shift for me because been married for years at that point, had kids, going to school. When you come from losing everything to just, it's like you have your wife, your 2 kids, and a Jeep, to I'm entrusted to tens of millions of dollars in equipment. I was the quality control liaison for aerospace medicine the whole time I was there. I built the entire quality control department. So it's like the buck stopped on my desk. And most of the people at my command were not aerospace medicine techs. They were traditional hospital corpsmen or quad zeros. And so with that authority and that responsibility, it's like you learn so much that when normal things happen and you have 19-year-old junior sailors, male and female, and everything that goes crazy in their lives of new shiny cars, and they can, next thing you know, an E3 shows up with a Rolex because somebody had a pay plan at the mall, or you got an E4 showing up with a Corvette and a new wife. Yeah. It was like, dude, you all need to learn some life lessons here. So it was very eye-opening. Now, I will say my passion for innovation and technology was very relatable to those that were junior to me. Because they're all consumed with video games, co-own a gaming development company, and I can't stand playing video games. And they were on their PlayStation and Xboxes all the time. But when I started deep diving into like simulation technology and things like that, I could bring them in to support and they get it. So it's learning of, there's a lot of like social nonsense that occurs. There's a lot of just bad choices that junior sailors and service members make. But when the job came to getting done, there was a way that we could connect and inspire that younger generation where they're like, oh, at 7 years old, 28 years old, you're an old guy in the military. But it was a way that now you could establish that connection in the ranks again by leveraging things that they're familiar with, they're passionate about, they're interested in a way that actually betters our mission, our taxpayers, things like that, our country. So I was always trying to find ways to try and influence that. And where I could, other times it's no, I'm the boss, we're going to shut it down, just do it. But as much as I possibly could, it was always, how do we inspire them? Because I wanted them to think outside the box. I wanted them to eventually replace me. So there was internal frustrations of always, how do I connect with somebody lower generation, not lesser, but a younger generation than myself, when I don't know what that term means. When I'm just like, hey, let's like bury your head and let's go. Like head down, get the job done. Once it's done, pull chocks, get out of here. That's very much my mindset. Like head down and grind and get the team through it. Where they're like, oh, but my feelings. And I was like, I don't care about that. I'm hungry. I was hungry 2 days ago. I don't care. We got stuff to do. And so it really caused a lot of internal. I just try to do my best to not let my juniors see that, because they were very much that influential workforce that we needed to rise up.
Yeah. Were there some techniques that you developed that you'd be willing to share of how you, because there's a lot of tendencies for people when they develop that frustration, they automatically just start laying into folks. And what was your approach to mitigating that?
Yeah. Early in my career, I was called Bulldog a fair amount. When you're 6'2", 250 pounds, when you come in at 26, not only do you put in leadership positions, but you also get put in disciplinary positions. And it was something I absolutely hated it. I dreaded those episodes of where it's like chief comes in and says, oh, I need a Bulldog. And I'm like, fine, here we go again.
Yeah.
And so then it was about halfway through my career, I realized I was like, I'm done with this. I'm as an E5, you can finally get enough respect from people to hold them at bay for a little bit. And so you can say no respectfully in some healthy manners. And I remember telling my first class that I worked for, I said, oh, you need to go get this female, blah, blah, blah. So she had messed something up. And then I was like, what is that going to do though? What's that going to do? I said, you get everybody around here walking on pins and needles, operating in fear. Show me a single psychological philosophy that shows people perform their best under fear.
Yeah.
I said, in fact, I've been studying psychology for 2 years now in my undergrad, and people perform best when they're affirmed, when they're supported, when they have people, when they have a team. That's why sports people nearly shatter bones to get back out there on the field with their teammates.
Yeah.
I said, because their coaches are sewing into them. And so I shifted a lot and I spent a lot of time studying. I spent a lot of time both studying philosophy and theology so much to develop and understand this intrinsic value for people. And so I've always looked at people in a way of, you bring things to the table that I don't. You were created in a way that complements me. Like, you have things I don't. How do we do this together? It's like pieces of a puzzle. And so early in the military, that just went out the window. It was just, no, you just bark at everybody all day long, yell at everybody. It's like, that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
And so it got to a turning point where it's, no, like, what do you think about the situation? Or I'd ask people, it's like, hey, you screwed up. Clearly, you know something's going to happen here. Put yourself in my shoes. What do you think would happen here? We're going to escalate that a lot. That was nice. We're going to go a little higher than that. But it's also when I found that whether it's disciplining or affirming them, if you keep in that middle instead of the highs and lows, you're able to connect with them. There's intentionality, whether it's expressed severity or an actual desire to connect with them. And so I didn't want to break everyone down all the time. So when I needed something, they're not there. But it's, no, we have accountability. We should have teamwork. We should have camaraderie 99% of the time. And 1%, it's human error. It happens. Things happen. But we know that there's enough of respect there and camaraderie that when something's happened, I can come alongside you and we can address it and move forward. And so that was a big turning point for me. And that really changed my entire career, studying these things. I always had that value, and I just needed to really understand them a lot more.
Yeah. To me, it's truly amazing that you locked on to that idea of an evidence-based and Socratic approach to leadership, and still relatively at an early age. Even if it was in your late 20s, that's still fairly early, because there's a lot of people that they're in their 40s and 50s and they still haven't found that balance and developed that technique of being able to properly motivate and lead people without it turning into something negative.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about how, so you did your time, you got injured and had to work through that process. Was there anything during that process? Because obviously that's not easy. I'm sure it caused a lot of frustration. Is there anything during the course of that you want to share or talk about?
Medical are the worst patients. We all know this. It was a lot of just intrinsic searching at that point. And I'm a huge advocate now of really like self-reflection, self-talk, internal discovery. What are you about? What are your interests? What do you like doing? What feeds you? So I learned, there was a lot of lessons learned through that. That was around the same time that I had my value change for people. And so it was like, I'm just like going so hard in my career, going to school full time from like 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. every day, sleep 2-3 hours a night. And then in between patients, I'd go rack out every now and then on a patient bed for a half hour here and there, work 8 to 12-hour days. And afterwards, we'd have collateral duties, and you just go hard on everything. I got kids in school, I got a wife and vacations and all this stuff. And it was a turning point of, wow, I'm going hard, but where am I going? And so it made me really reevaluate all this stuff. That was another big pivot in my life. But even then, afterwards, I still didn't take care of myself. It was like, oh no, I'm good. I'm good. I landed 3 lanes over, landed on my head, got knocked out. I can't walk right. I was like, I couldn't talk right for a little bit. I couldn't figure out what was going on. I ended up having to have jaw surgery to fix my jaw after the accident and find out my back was collapsed and discs were hurting, like all this stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm not going to the hospital. I'm good. I'm good. And yeah, that was a really stupid choice on my end. A very unhealthy choice, led to just prolonged addressing what was going on. So through that, though, I learned a lot about myself and the just change in so many ways of how to start taking care of ourselves. And from seeing a counselor for years now, I've had some wonderful therapists for years now that help out. A huge advocate for mindfulness meditation and wellness. And I'm a functional medicine doctor that I go to, and having hobbies and things like that, finding things you like to do, finding things that sow into you, that feed you, that edify you. Because I started learning this term called capacity. And with capacity, like you only have so much. And I was like, do you though? Or can dense things take up more capacity than non-dense things? So your bad stressors, your bad experiences, the things that weigh heavy, those are denser. And so when those have a multiplier to them. But having fun with your wife and kids and going and having adventures or some lighthearted reading and things like that's less dense, it's lighter. And so you actually have more capacity to do those things. So finding out how to manage those things and have, I wouldn't say a better balance in life, because my schedule is very full regularly. And that's intentional in a lot of things though, because I just manage my schedule effectively. But making sure I have time between work stuff to have me time, wife time, kid time. And then in the meantime, it's sewing into it. So, what really feeds me now? And I learned that because whereas in the military, when I thought I was like, oh, I'm a high performer, I'm just taking everything on.
Yeah.
After I got hurt, I was like, I can't take on 70% of what I used to do. I still be a high performer. That was very much ingrained in my identity of, no, if you do one thing, you're a failure. You should be doing dozens of things at a time. And so I had to relearn a framework of what it means to be a high performer. And it wasn't just how many boxes can I check or how many things can I do, but it's like, how well can I take care of myself so that I have increased, I want to have greater capacity than others so that one of my businesses, they succeed very well. My employees, my team, my business partners, I can sew into them. I'm there for them. I can connect people, randomly meet people and say, hey, maybe I'm the person that makes that change in your life. But if I don't have capacity to do it, then I'm not open to it. And it's a missed opportunity. So I owe it to myself and random people to take care of myself, to be that high performer. So it really changed a lot in how I think and a lot of my philosophies as well.
I was curious is because when you're used to being able to do certain things, especially from a physical standpoint, there's a lot of guys that I know that I've worked with and that I'm friends with that they've, come out of the military with disabilities. Some of them missing limbs and have had to have themselves surgically put back together. One of the things that they really mentally had to work through was finding that their value was not dictated by what they could physically do anymore. So I was curious if you had to work through that process too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The physical injuries took me to a dark place, a very dark place. Yeah. That was a place where there was a night where my wife and both kids were like, tomorrow we're going down to the VA. Yeah. We're actually worried. It's like, okay, said, I don't see it, but I love and value you guys. I hear you. Something's going on. Let's go down there. And because it was different though, because when I changed my framework, I'm going through all these injuries. I ended up having 7 surgeries. Like I said, 8 years of rehab. I absolutely hate physical therapy because I spent 8 years in it. It wasn't that it didn't work. It's just, I needed so much. It just became, every day I gotta go do more pelvic tilts and more traction on my spine and more band pulling and more anti-gravity treadmill walking. And I was just like, I didn't want that part of me. And then it was the TBI therapy, and then it was the sleep pathologists and all these different things to learn, all while barely walking for years. And so working at the same time was very difficult. This is where the compartmentalization from the military actually helped me a lot. It really did. I think that actually was that and really good therapy saved my life very much. Yeah. Really saved my marriage, saved me being a parent to my children, because I was able to, there are those times where it's just, this is just too much. Like, I'm done with that right now. I'm working on a couch. Like, I was a director at a university, and my first day on the job, I felt bad for them because they had moved a department. So I'm going to build this entire Veterans Services department at the University of Northern California. And they asked me, where's a good place on campus to build this whole new department? I was like, oh, right over here. And they're like, oh, that's the psychology department. I was like, yeah, I know. They moved the psychology department. And so I show up and they bought for new furniture for my office and everything. And it was so great, like executive desk and chairs and shelving. And I was like, oh, that's nice. I said, where's my office? And they go, what do you mean? I told you guys I can't sit down. If I sit down, I'm not going to be able to stand up. I need a stand-up desk and a couch. I don't need a chair. I'm not trying to be ungrateful. I just can't. And so those kinds of things, like those were my reality for years. Having a mobility service dog, that even that was very difficult because the attention from it. Like, you're getting known because nobody wants to talk about the injury. You have a dog because of an injury. Yeah. It betters my life, but I don't want the attention for it. So there's so much of that went into that 8 years of epidural injections just to be able to function. I've had dozens of epidural injections now over those 8-year period just to be able to function. Yeah. And it was a lot of putting things back together. Every time someone sees you in a pair of shorts, I got a full length leg brace just to be able to walk, all these things. And so it's tough because, especially as a high performer, it's like I'm doing all these things. Like, I'm teaching college classes, I'm starting companies, I'm doing so much while I'm going to my own college. And your identity is solely based off of injuries, things that really you would give up in a heartbeat if you could, or things that you would love to run away from and you can't. And so I had to really like dig into that with a therapist, with more than just a therapist, like best friends and wife. And my daughter, she's turning 20 this year, and she went through some of it with me, and she was there by side helping me when I was going through the training program with the service dog. So that was a thing. I had to go through training. He had to go through training, and then they put us together for training
Yeah.
for a while also. And really seeing like, how do I
Mhm.
shift the focus off of these limitations, these injuries, these disabilities, things like that? Well, it's hard to do when you can't stand up straight for 8 years.
Yeah.
And so it was a huge struggle. It really was. So it's like wife and kids, we go to the YMCA and I'm walking laps in a pool,
Mhm.
because that's the limit I could do. When they're running or they're playing basketball. And so, yeah, those disabilities, they become an identity that you never really want. And so it's how do you embrace it, but how do you? So I chose a lot of humor.
Mhm.
Did a lot of humor. Yeah, I was very sarcastic. People were like, "Oh my gosh!" I was like, "Yeah, I just put a vest on them because I like having my pet everywhere with me," or things like that. Or it's, "Yeah, I just wear the knee brace because it looks good with my shorts," or "I don't want to stand up straight because I'm too tall." But it was a game changer when I finally could in 2020. It really was.
Yeah, I can only imagine the strength that you have to really develop to be able to continue to endure that every day. And were there times that you didn't feel like there was going to be an end in sight when you were having to
Oh
work
yeah,
through all?
yeah. That was when I was told. That was before both of my spine surgeries. When the
Mhm.
neurosurgeon told me that this is your new normal. I was like, "You're too young to operate on your spine." So what do you mean I'm too young? You say I need the spine surgery. You found the problems, but you're saying you won't do it until I'm 50 years old. So I'm like this for another 15 years. And
Doesn't
that
make
got
any
really dark.
Yeah, yeah, that doesn't make sense because you would think if you're younger, your body's going to be able to recover faster. You're going to be able to respond better. And
That's everything I studied in physiology, kinesiology, and all my time in the operating room, scrubbing out on over 30 surgeries.
so, as you transitioned from that, and you're starting businesses, and you're going to school, and you're doing all those things, kind of share with us how you transitioned to being more full fledged as a business owner, and you've got multiple companies that you're managing and running. And then you're also working with the Florida Association for Veteran Businesses. Talk a little bit about how those experiences have kind of led you into that and influenced that.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of this. So all this really came from when I was restructuring the command that I was at and developing all these new departments and learning process improvement and organizational design and development. Because like, when you're wearing a uniform, it's saving tax dollars. You want to eliminate billets, save tax dollars. When you get out of the
Yeah.
military, that's increasing profit margins, is what that means. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. We just look at it from a different way.
Yeah.
And so getting out, I was like, I really liked that. Out of everything I did in the military, I did some really amazing stuff. I was super blessed. That
Mhm.
was the thing that really stuck out as my favorite thing, was learning the business side of organizations. I
Yeah.
absolutely loved it. And so continuing to really go after that with
Mhm.
my graduate programs and the opportunity to build multiple departments and everything like that, it was very much of, oh, this is coming full circle.
Yeah.
My medical background, my tech background, because when you're in aerospace medicine, you do a lot of training. So you're exposed to lots of simulators and crazy technology, things like that. And I learned some really unique ways, like engineering methods, when I was in the military from working with a number of these different technologists and technology contractors.
Yeah.
And there was one contract I worked on, I was the representative for. They were talking about this. And I was like, huh, this is really unique. In my mind, I'm saying this is the way I think you can manage businesses.
Yeah.
But it was a software engineering practice. And after I got out, it's really honing in on this a lot. I spent a greater part of 10 years continuing to hone in on this of how do I manage businesses using this method? It's very data driven, it's very intelligent. It removes the subjectivity and the guesswork out of businesses because I got tired. I was like, okay, I want to get into business admin, but I'm tired of hearing everybody that's, oh, here's my method, and here's 10x this, 20x that, 100K here, 200K. I was like, now,
Yeah.
stop. It really is a numbers game. I'll argue that to the death. Even my business mentor, who's very successful, it's a numbers game. Learning from these engineers how they manage products and technology using data, I figured out a way to adopt that into business management and into business design. And even in my MBA, I spent a lot of time focusing on how to leverage this and develop it. Merge two worlds. Tech and business normally don't talk well.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of reframing how businesses think about data. And most of them don't even understand how to leverage data for intelligent business management. I discovered this thing. So I don't tell people it's like my own model. I just discovered how to do it. And then I haven't seen anybody else really doing it, which is great for me. But it's a way of being able to smartly think about your business, but design your business off of research and planning and data,
Mhm.
like actual decisions based off of data. So that
Yeah.
everything in your business, you should be able to know what you're doing, when you're doing it, how you're doing it, why you're doing it, and the most important, how to assess and pivot along the way.
Yeah.
And so I always had this mindset of, okay, I learned this from one of those professors that I was working with when I was doing some work for the Navy Surgeon General. And so as
Yeah.
I continue to do that, now it's, oh, actually, let me help others learn to start businesses. So I started 3 of my own businesses.
Yeah.
And then I partially acquired another business, actually a couple other businesses now. And I mentor VC firms and VC clients and startup incubators and things like this. And I show them how you can do it using data. We are in a completely technology impregnated world. Everywhere you
Yeah.
look, everything is changed because of technology, even down to like where I got my start in business was strategic planning. I love it. It's like a lost art anymore. I loved strategic planning when I first started consulting. I just did strategic plans for companies because I actually loved it. The
Yeah.
5-year strategic plan is gone because of technology. Everything
Yeah.
evolves and just that fast. You can't keep up with it. And now I teach people how to do that in their whole business. Of yes, let's use force multiplier models and AI integration and lean is great, but let's do process elimination. How do we automate things? How do we task delegation and follow up? But I don't need to have a meeting with you to do that. Let's use software to track our communication so we can refer back to it. So now we don't lose historical data of, oh, this
Mhm.
initiative, we're going to replicate it every year for the next 5 years. So now we can track our lessons learned. So we don't
Yeah.
reinvent the wheel, but we also don't repeat the same failure. Let's find our successes, look at the data off of that and what worked. But even down to strategic partnerships, I have a whole model for strategic partnerships that we write a partnership description, just like a job description for an employee. And we
Mhm.
have key metrics, just like we have for our team members and our employees. And then we have continuing education. We all need to go to a conference. We all need to read this book. But then we have regular cadences to evaluate it. And we run data analysis on it. If it works, then that's good. We keep it. And why is it working? If it isn't working, why? We run a
Yeah.
market analysis. Does it work? Does it not work? What's going on in the market that either directly or indirectly affects it? And we make an intelligent decision of we're going to keep it for one more quarter, or no, this isn't going to change. Let's just cut it now. And we need to find somebody else now to fill that gap in our partnership
Yeah.
portfolio. We do that with tech products. We do that with regional expansions. I've done a lot of regional expansions and vertical expansions for companies. And it's very much market research. And in market research isn't just gaps in the market. It's looking at who are the partners in the market? How can we
Yeah.
team up with them? Things like that. So it's a different way of thinking about business. And so for me, that comes from the passion, similar to how I see value in people,
Mhm.
is business ownership is crazy. Entrepreneurs, like we are crazy. We're the only group in the world that'll work 100 hours a week so we don't have to work 40.
Yeah.
And the reason is a lot of them don't have that business acumen. They're technology, they're subject matter experts. And
Yeah.
so I want them to stay subject matter experts so they don't lose their creativity. But I
Mhm.
want myself and my consulting firm to be the experts in the business strategy side so that
Yeah.
we come alongside them and help them with their businesses because like we're going to show them how to make revenue, but I can't show them how to be creative.
Do you have a way of being able to take, because I know for me, I'm not necessarily not a data guy because I do have to, in the multiple businesses that I'm in the healthcare field, everything has to be data driven and results driven from through metrics. And there's times that I start looking at sheets of numbers. And do you have a way that you simplify that for businesses to so that they don't get that effect?
Yes, a public access AI is an amazing business tool. And it's not, and I
Mhm.
teach people, we actually have an entire program called AI Accelerate. So I trademarked AI Accelerate,
Mhm.
and I love talking about it because it's teaching people how to integrate AI as a force multiplier into their business. One of my favorite GPTs to custom build are analysts, because as humans we hate analyzing things just over. It's a repetitive task that it's a big revenue driver.
Yeah.
Because it shows us where we need to evaluate and where we need to pivot and where we need to capture. What if our analyst became the quality control expert for a team of 8 GPT analysts? Yes, I will pay you so much money if you tell me every decision that I need to make. And we have an intelligent design behind it. And so it's teaching people to have the right AI in the right space in their business, because we can program it to, hey, here's markers we look for, here's thresholds, here's our if then logic of what our decision making framework will be. And so we tell it, we use a term called emulation philosophy. So emulation philosophy with AI is heavy on emulating me, my decision making strategies, so that there can be more of me. This is why I'm a huge AI evangelist, because we only have so much capacity. If I can take a 10-person small independent team and have them have the operational capacity of a 50-person team, which is a real case that I've done multiple times. The margins are through the roof. They're extremely competitive. But the most important thing is the person that had the idea, but more importantly, the guts and the bravery to risk everything to start a business, I can help them be sustainable. Because especially small businesses, they impact the business owner, their family, their local community. Corporate businesses have a great place. They provide tons of jobs. They typically don't have the community impact that small businesses do.
I'm nowhere near as versed on AI as you are. I dabble in it with certain things, projects that I'm working on. And I know for me, I need to embrace the idea of using AI to be able to help make my life a little easier. But I have to let go of some of my control issues too. But one of the things that I do talk about, I go out and I talk to HR departments about using AI to be able to streamline their talent search, to be able to get better quality applicants, and being able to use that to not only bring people in, but track their internal talent to be able to develop them, and then see who's potential to be able to move up and fill in positions as they come open. But yeah, AI is just, there's so much to it. And I know for some people, AI is a scary thing. And probably because they've seen some of these news reports where AIs decide that they're going to blackmail their engineers.
No, it's not.
I feel like it has been definitely a usable tool, and it's not going to be something that's a fad like the internet. So it's going to stay with us.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. And I give a lot of talks on AI. In fact, this weekend, I'm traveling tomorrow morning to go give a talk over the next 3 days down in Fort Lauderdale. Really great conference on AI. And one of the reasons I love talking on it is to break down these myths. What I found is most people are afraid of AI because it's overwhelming. When everybody is talking about one thing. Remember when the internet came online, everybody was overwhelmed because how many ISPs were out there, how many browsers were out there, how many free downloadable websites for music can you have at one time? All that. It was just like an abyss of technology, but an abyss of access. So when I tell people, if a Google search is one computing power, a Chat GPT command generates their minimum model right now is 68 times the computing power of one Google search.
Wow.
So look at everybody, internet. Everybody was losing their mind about access. And here we are decades later, the access with just the internet is that much greater. We're talking 1,000,000 times greater. And then overnight, 68 times what just evolved over 3 decades. It's overwhelming. It's an abyss of access. But there's also a lot of dishonesty and predatory practices with AI. People say, oh, we have an AI SaaS companies, an AI this, an AI that. It's no, that's just a logical algorithm. That's normal. It's not AI. It's not intelligent. Or you'll have AI that's on the back end of third-party software, things like that, which some of them are good. Everybody's doing that right now. It's simple to build out. And that's where, but then you have your entire tech stack is this massive spiderweb digital footprint of everything's breaking, and you're a small business of 10 people, and one of them, all they do is monitor your plugins all day to make sure they don't break. And so now you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just to keep your stuff connected and working. Where there's a model where you can get rid of all that. Most companies I work with operate off of one to usually two software. That's it. And these are medical practices. These are good sized businesses that are in the 9 figures. We can operate on 2 softwares. It's just the right software. And then you're building out AI command centers and things like that, learning what AI agents and GPTs are versus just a thread. You can give them access now to the tools that you normally use. So I have GPTs that I can tell it to do things, and it'll log in to software that I use and just do the work for me.
Yeah.
But I don't have to leave that one interface. So yeah, it's really wild where we've come so far.
My first memories of even accessing a computer, I kind of had the opposite effect where you were. I went in at 17 in the military and then came out at 26. And so age wise, we were in the opposite night.
We were high-fiving.
Yeah. You're going in, I'm on my way out. And then I'm on a college campus with 18, 19-year-olds that I'm like, they're driving me nuts, because after everything I had done and everything I had experienced, and then I'm out there on a college campus now. I definitely advise people that if you're going to do that, take a little bit of a transition period before you go jump on a college campus if you can. But yeah, my first memory of sitting down at a computer, we had some technology when I was in the service. We had these thick laptops that they gave us that it was nothing but digitized green screen and black screen with green digital stuff. And I remember our first computers that we got when I was in college, that it was the same thing. I had a Hotmail account, and it was my first email account, and everything was just digital screen. So when you print it out, it's just one big, the spreadsheets that have the stuff that you have to tear away on the side. So to see where everything has come just in that short amount of time has been absolutely astounding. And for me, we're coming up on close to 30 years since all that. And it's been absolutely astounding, the acceleration. And to be able to have people like you that can be able to look at it, be able to see the potential of it, and then be able to help others be able to integrate it and make their lives better is truly awesome.
I'm trying to harness it, trying to get it something that's tangible, that's controllable, but also more importantly, this is such a revolutionary technology. It's crazy because the internet was a revolutionary technology that every executive, every employee, every company in the world needed. And whether they wanted to be a tech influence company or not, they didn't have a choice, because show me a business that exists today without the internet. All banking institutions in the US are tied together with the internet. So unless you're a cash-based business that has no power, then you're tied together with the internet. So there really isn't any. And that's where AI is going, but at a much faster, more competitive rate, because the internet only provided access. It didn't provide task execution. AI is employees. And so now it's this whole framework. Like I have a program called HR.ai where we merge HR and IT departments together to create one new department. And in doing so, we use IT to manage AI agents. And then we use HR to issue licenses to this AI employee and the SOPs, the playbooks of how to train them and how to execute certain tasks. So that way IP security is much more enhanced that way. But now every employee has 4 or 5 different agents or GPTs for task execution. So what you used to be able to do with one employee, you're now getting a 400% increase in productivity.
Wow. Because I'm still, like I said, I'm still trying to learn, because I've just been playing with the Chat GPT, the Open AI, I guess is what it's called. And that's been my only exposure. So I'm really having to increase my learning curve. Plus I'm getting older. I'm trying to learn it before my brain completely leaves me. But yeah, there's just so much to it. So what are some things that we've been talking a little bit about what you do? What are some things that you can offer everybody and everybody that's listening that, you would be able to do to be able to help them and their businesses and or whatever interest they have?
Yeah, so a few things. I love empowering business owners. Absolutely. One, you can follow all my social media. First of all, we put a lot of knowledge out there, lots of it. Go to any event I'm speaking at. My goal at every stage I get on is people come away drinking from a fire hose. That's my
Yeah.
goal. I've got an hour to just flood you with stuff that you can do to change your business. So if you can get in that room, that's my goal. I got a big stage I'm getting on Saturday, and my goal is to just engage with every business owner through practical exercises, interactive exercises, and tons of knowledge. Take notes, record. You can record it, the whole thing. I don't even care. I'll even tell you how to record it using an AI note taker while I'm talking. And then I say it in a way that it'll break it out into a summary with action items for you for your own business. Take it away. It's a great lesson. But also, if you go to my website, mxiconsulting.com, in the top right-hand corner, it'll say more. Click on Knowledge Vault. Okay. I have 6 different books that I've written so far, small, digestible business books. There's a couple courses in there. I offer that to anybody that goes to my website. You can access that at no cost. So it's learning, like one of them, learning what your unfair advantage is. So start driving your competitive mentality in business. And speaking of mentality and mindset, I actually wrote a book on developing a strategic growth mindset, because I found that business owners, like when we were working with them, we can give them all these tools, we can launch all these different initiatives and capture market share and drive revenue and build companies and hire people. And then as soon as we're done working with them, it's back to square one. And so it's, oh, we gave you the tactical, but you never got a strategic mindset. Like you didn't understand this. And so I wrote this for business owners because we just don't have a lot of time. So it's a 10-week, 10 exercises. So every week you read one page, read it 3 times, and do the exercise 3 times. So that way, at the end of 10 weeks, you are guaranteed to think completely different about strategy and growth in your business.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. With some of your materials, do you talk about and break down some of these different assistants that are available and to be able to help people? You have these assistants that can be developed through AI, through, I guess, the bots, those types of things.
Yeah, so I talk a lot. Some shows I go on, some webinars I speak on. I also teach with a couple education institutions and things like that. I do that where we talk a lot about AI integration, AI development, which is it's a huge array. It really is. It's so broad how we can go. I can talk enterprise level, close large language models down to threads in ChatGPT, down to custom GPTs and ChatGPT to Gemini, Claude, API integration. Like I can just keep going on. And every one of those, by the way, was AI. And so there's a lot to unpack. And so I have a number of different courses that I teach as well. And then even some enterprise organizations and corporate organizations, they'll bring me in to teach this to their workforce, to their executive teams. These are some pretty big publicly traded companies that have brought me in as well to be their AI advisor, to teach their workforce, I had a CTO of a very massive tech company, very large. They're on multiple continents, reach out to me and bring me in just to educate. So this was the head of technology for the entire corporation to educate their workforce, because they understand that as the technologist and the senior technologist, you're not always the right person to talk about it. I see it very differently than how an engineer would. An engineer is going to focus on prompt engineering. I could care less about prompt engineering. I focus on prompt philosophy. What is the purpose of it? Not what is typed in it, but what is it supposed to do and how do we design it? Things like that, because I humanize AI. And so, I teach a lot of courses on that. So if organizations are interested in learning more, they can actually go to justinrspears.com. That's my speaking site. I share lots of shows. So, when this show here will actually be linked on my site as well, but also highlights some of the speaking engagements that I've been at, from simulation summits earlier this year. I was presenting up at Harvard, which was an amazing experience. I've got a few universities that I speak at. And so I invite people, if they're in the area or they'd love to come and travel, come to these. And then always they can reach out to me through either justinrspears.com or through mxiconsulting.com. and we can jump on a call. I'm always happy to jump on a synergy session and see what amazing stuff we can come up with in a call.
Yeah. Yeah. That's truly awesome. We've actually gone way over our hour mark, so I try to be respectful of time and of your time, and I really appreciate the time that you've come on and given us. You've shared so much, not only just about you and your journey, but also what you can do to help people. And that's been my main goal: is what can we do to help each other, and how can we help other people? And I love bringing people like you on, that you've got the right mindset, you've got a giving spirit, and you're definitely here to help people. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much, Doc. It was a huge honor to be on your show. And thank you for seeing my heart there. I love being able to empower other people, to guide them, and really show a message of resiliency, but also in continued growth. Now,
Yeah. Yeah, because that your backstory of that definitely is resiliency, having to go through not only the physical shifts that you had to make, but the mental shifts that go along with that, and then be able to continue to strive and be the success that you are now. So
yeah.
definitely inspirational.
Thank you. That's actually I have a number of different keynotes that I
Mhm.
speak on. I've got 10 different keynotes that I've really been working on for about 10 years now. And my favorite one is completely on resiliency, and it's called Being the Founder of Your Life. Now, talking to people about being the founder of their journey and being intentional. I've heard a lot of
Mhm.
people talk about being the CEO of your journey. The
Yeah.
CEO still works for someone, so somebody still told them what to do. And that's why I believe in being the founder. One, from an entrepreneurial background, we're called founders,
Yeah.
but we come up with some crazy ideas. And so let's infuse some crazy ideas into our journey and take a hold of it, and surround ourselves with the right tribe, and let's, go after it.
I definitely want to stay in touch with you after this, and I would love to be able to have an opportunity to pick your brain, because I know there's some things I need help with. I've got my own challenges I got to work through. But thank you again. Share with everybody the best way to get a hold of you.
Easiest way to get a hold of me, mxiconsulting.com and justinrspears.com. All my socials are on there: Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and soon to be coming a YouTube channel as well.
Awesome. Thank you again. And thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, this is The Approach.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Approach. Please hit that like button and subscribe for the latest episodes. If you would like to be a guest or would like for Dr. McAllister to speak at your business or event, you can email him at info@drdavismcallister.com. You can also go to his website at drdavismcallister.com.